Kia ora koutou. Welcome to our live stream about the election date announcement. Oh, this is so exciting.
Good morning.
It's like a Eurovision Song Contest or something. How are you, Shai?
Good. Yeah, just really eager to hear what this decision is going to be.
Yeah. And look, hey, Shai, I'm going to throw you on the spot here and ask you a question. And before I ask you the question, people at home should know that I did 2 years of law and it was the worst 2 years of my life. and so I asked Shai anything to do with law, but she's a criminal. She was a criminal lawyer, not a constitutional lawyer. So I don't expect you to know the answer to this question, okay? But just live on a live stream, can I ask you, like, if
Please
Winston
put me on the
Peters,
spot, Geoff.
because people are talking about what if Winston Peters actually throws his toys and causes a constitutional crisis over the election date, right? If he doesn't get what he wants, he can withdraw his support from the government. But doesn't that just mean there'd be an election anyway?
Effectively. I mean, if there was a motion that the Prime Minister doesn't have confidence and Parliament dissolves, it's really, I mean, there's a lot of power the Governor General has. For most of the time, they're this figurehead, right? But the Governor General does actually have a lot of power. So it's not just as simple to say that our Prime Minister no longer
has. Patsy, I hope Patsy's on the stream.
But it's not just as simple as saying, right, Jacinda no longer has the confidence. Who else does is the next question. So if they come to an agreement about who that is, then it is a real constitutional question. But
so
at the
Winston
end of the day, our Governor General
support.
has reserve powers. And will just set an election date.
Oh, right. Okay. The Governor General can just call an election. Okay, cool. But Winston could throw his support behind National. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, technically, yes, because then they could point to another leader having confidence. But again, the Governor General has those reserve powers, and what would most likely be to happen in this case is that the Governor General would just come along and set the election date. And as it's unlikely that National Judith Collins would then come in and have the caretaker role, but it is a question.
That is a question. Okay. That might be something that a difficult question for the Governor General to resolve. So we could face the potential.
It really would be for the Governor General to step in and take control of that decision making at that point, as to where power does lie.
Yeah. So potentially we could have a situation where probably the election date won't change very much anyway, but we could have someone else fronting the COVID press conferences for the next.
Yeah. And I mean, I think all that is an interesting hypothetical conversation as to what New Zealand's constitutional framework would look like in those circumstances. But I mean, we've seen the Prime Minister as a very conservative leader and very risk averse. So I imagine to even avoid the question of what this constitutional crisis could look like, she will probably be opting for at least a short delay here to appease, those critics, but under the guise of it for health and safety reasons, just to avoid the confrontation, because she's, as I say, I think she's very risk averse.
Right. So your bet is on a 2 or 3 week delay, something like that.
Yeah. I know that I saw really briefly there was some commentators thinking it's either going to be, I think it was the 17th of October or the 21st of November. But I would be really surprised if she opts for the November date, because, I mean, how would you justify such a long delay? It makes no sense. We're only in lockdown in level 3 in Auckland for probably just these 2 weeks. Really, Does that justify a 2-month extension? Wouldn't have thought so.
No, not at all.
And
campaigning was supposed to start today, so it's not like they are literally only losing 2 weeks.
That's right. So I think it's all been kind of blown out of proportion as to the impact of this. Yes, there has been an impact, but it's not a 2-month impact. So
No.
all this push for November doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and we're actually losing 2 weeks in time.
Yeah.
All it is kicking it down the road, hoping that the government screws up something else again and they can take on and National
support.
can kind of bolster support.
Yeah.
And Winston is also just kind of doing anything at this point to get some media attention because he's obviously failing as well in support.
Yeah. So
to put it bluntly,
pretty naked politics.
It really is. There's just no logical explanation for a 2-month delay at this point.
So anyway, we're a couple of minutes away from the announcement at 10 a.m. and
what do you think will happen, Geoff? What's your prediction?
No, I think you're right, Shai. I think there'll be a sort of reasonable compromise of 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks at the most. But I agree with you. I don't think 2 months can be justified at all. And
I think it's really important remembering that the Electoral Commission has powers in law to postpone an election date once the date has been set, if there are concerns around free and fair elections or safe elections. So they have the power then to delay just for 3 days to start with, and then a further 7 and a further 7 if necessary. Yeah. That's appropriate because that's the independent body responsible for overseeing our entire electoral process. Makes sense that they have that power instead of politicians who are just going to try and move it around to the date that's going to best be suiting them.
Absolutely. And I heard Judith Collins saying that some elderly folk are concerned about opening about postal voting because there might be COVID on the envelopes. I mean, she really is getting desperate with that one, isn't she?
Well, that's just another attempt to undermine postal voting, right? Because she's already done that last week, which is the exact same issue that America are dealing with right now, where they're having this huge crisis with the postal service and Trump stopping funding and removing letterboxes and post boxes and things like that. It's pretty
incredible.
Terrifying.
Removing post boxes is just extraordinary.
It's truly terrifying watching democracy fall in the way that we've seen over these past few years.
Yeah, it's the end game, isn't it, for democracy, certainly. Here we go. 10 o'clock on the dot.
Josiah, can you jump over for that? That is our leader. Thanks.
Morena, everyone. Today will be a busy day of announcements as we continue to roll out our COVID resurgence plan. This morning, I'll be sharing with you details on any impact on election planning. At 1 p.m, there will be the usual update on COVID cases from the Director General of Health. At 3 p.m, the Minister of Finance will give details of the support packages for businesses impacted by the current restrictions as part of our COVID response. Clearly, as a government, our current priority is getting the COVID outbreak under control and removing restrictions on New Zealanders as soon as possible. Our resurgence plan is in full swing. There are high levels of testing, rapid contact tracing, close contacts in self-isolation and cases in quarantine, alongside the level 3 restrictions that are all designed to limit the spread of the current cluster. However, it is clear that the re-emergence of COVID in Auckland at the beginning of the formal campaign period has been cause for concern. I should be clear that the Electoral Commission since April has planned for a range of scenarios, including the possibility of an election period where the country is at alert level 2 and with some areas of the country at alert level 3.
Ooh.
There is no suggestion at this point that New Zealand will be in these elevated alert levels during the September election. However, while the Electoral Commission's primary consideration is the delivery of a safe, accessible, and credible election, there are other factors that I believe also need to be considered. These include the participation of voters and the ability of the Electoral Commission to reassure them that measures are in place to allow them to participate safely in the election. This includes vulnerable communities who might be reluctant to vote in person. Ensuring a fair election with the opportunity for all parties to campaign. And finally, certainty, and ultimately the need for an election to be held in a timely way. Ultimately, I want to ensure we have a well-run election that gives all voters the best chance to receive all the information they need about parties and candidates and delivers certainty for the future. With these considerations in mind, yesterday I reached out to the leaders of every political party with representatives in Parliament. Under normal circumstances, the choice of what day the election is held is a decision that solely rests with the Prime Minister. However, under these extraordinary circumstances, I see the decision to move an election day as a different proposition that deserves to be treated as such. Moving an election date, especially this late in the electoral cycle, is a significant decision. In the end, what matters most is what is in the best interest of voters and our democracy. Any decision to review the election date must be as free from partisan political interests as possible. It is fair to say that there are a very broad range of views amongst political parties, and that complete consensus is unlikely. But there were some areas of agreement. The need for certainty was one. In this respect, the calculation around when to hold an election is not an easy one. COVID is continuing to disrupt life around the world. Pushing an election out by several months, for instance, does not lessen the risk of disruption. This will in part be the reason why many countries have held elections while managing COVID, including South Korea, Singapore, and Poland. Weighing up each of these issues and the feedback of a broad range of interests, I have sought and received advice from the Electoral Commission on a range of options, including retaining the current date of the 19th of September, moving the election by 4 weeks to the 17th of October, and the final possible date the Electoral Commission considers the election could realistically be held, which is the 21st of November. Having weighed up all these factors and taken wide soundings, I have decided on balance to move the election by 4 weeks to the 17th of October.
There you go.
At the end of last week, I was advised that this date is achievable and presents no greater risk than had we retained the status quo. I've also been advised that in moving to a 17 October election day, the Commission will be able to leverage and draw on much of the work already undertaken to deliver the election. Beginning early voting during school holidays, while having the downside of some people moving around the country, would mean that some additional facilities would become available for the purposes of early voting. The biggest risk to overcome will be ensuring access to the election day workforce, which includes some 25,000 workers. This has been identified as a risk no matter what day is chosen. I did consider the possibility of moving the election by the same period of time that we anticipate Auckland could be in level 3, a period of 2 weeks. I was advised by the Electoral Commission that this would not provide them with enough time to rebook venues, print materials, and reorganise the election workforce. Ultimately, the 17th of October, in approximately 9 weeks' time, provides sufficient time for parties to plan around the range of circumstances we could be campaigning under, for the Electoral Commission to prepare, and for voters to feel assured of a safe, accessible, and credible election. Due to this decision, I am proposing that Parliament reconvene tomorrow. The Business Committee will meet this afternoon to agree a timetable for Parliament for the next few weeks, but under the circumstances, I consider it important that Parliament is able to consider the decisions of government and that these decisions are still subject to appropriate scrutiny. The dissolution of Parliament will be scheduled for Sunday, the 6th of September, and Writ Day will be Sunday, the 13th of September. Nominations will close at noon on Friday, the 18th of September. Advance voting will start on Saturday, the 3rd of October. And the last day for the return of the writ will be Thursday, the 12th of November. I have advised the Governor-General of the new election date. My final comment is a simple one. COVID is the world's new normal. Here in New Zealand, we are all working as hard as we can to make sure that our new normal disrupts our lives as little as possible. I know the uncertainty COVID has created is incredibly difficult though, and for everyone. We are all in the same boat. And so I do want to give an assurance that I do not intend to change the election date again. We are all adapting, but adapting also means preparing for all circumstances we may face together. My hope is that this decision allows us to do just that. I'm happy to take your questions.
So don't we run the risk if you have October 17 that we could see another resurgence of COVID-19 and we have to go through the process all over again?
I think that's an important point to make, is that the Electoral Commission have actually prepared for a range of circumstances.
Well, there we go, folks. That is a big decision.
Mostly, I guess, as many predicted. We don't have to have a constitutional argument, and it was good that she made the explanation as to why it wasn't just the 2 weeks. If the Electoral Commission has said that that's not enough time for them to change their paperwork, then if that is the case, then that does make sense. If it's on their advice, then great. Very pragmatic in some ways to avoid a fight.
My one question is, if she consulted with every political party with representatives in Parliament, did she talk to Jamie Lee Ross? and did she need to disinfect everything afterwards? That's the question.
It's too early in the day, Geoff. It's too early. But I think, what does that mean for everyone? We have a guarantee that it will not be changed again, and a strong message, could have been stronger to be fair, to all political parties. If COVID flares up again and we're in different alert levels, get over it. You need to adapt, you need to evolve. If you cannot go out and meet people face to face, do something different. Reach voters online, call them on the phone. Figure it out, but don't complain again because it cannot be changed, because it doesn't suit your 1970s method of campaigning. Sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, totally. I mean, the Electoral Commission is planning for all eventualities, and political parties have to do that as well. And frankly, businesses have to plan for all eventualities. I mean, the irony of the parties of business, National and ACT, whinging that they can't, campaign during lockdown, when neither can businesses. It's absolutely ridiculous to claim that they can't pivot and be a little bit more, innovative in how they campaign.
Totally, Geoff. We have placed these incredible burdens on all of our business community. They didn't get a chance to change the rules to suit them. It's a real slap in the face that politicians are doing that now for themselves.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess it'll be interesting to see if, because, I mean, National and New Zealand First have been actively not wanting to campaign during while we are in level 3 in Auckland in particular, but also even in level 2 in the rest of the country. They've been declining doing candidate meetings even online, which again is extraordinary.
Ridiculous, actually.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess if the election was going to get pushed back 2 months, then they would, then it would kind of make sense to suspend campaigning and push everything, reorganize everything. But with campaigning being pushed back just a month, what's your vibe on that, Shai? Do you think, there's so many events that have been organized around the country? Are we expecting all of these community groups and residents associations to now reorganize in a month's time, or do we just need to suck it up and actually have these sessions over the next, well, basically until the election now?
Yeah, why not? There's no explanation that makes sense why you wouldn't just hold them as online events. You don't have any risk, no health risks, no social distancing issues. It's online, it is safe. And I feel really sorry for these event organizers. It is a real mission to organize these events. And so now they're going to have to, find new dates that suit all parties. It's just not going to happen. So
Book new venues, yeah, it's
exactly,
crazy.
yeah. So it makes more sense to support the community, and not only because time is of the essence, but also because if they were to postpone and there's another flare up, you're right back at the start again.
Exactly, yeah. And I mean, I do think that it's a little bit rich of parties like National to say that they're not campaigning when in fact they're campaigning. Let's be honest, they're politicking all the time. So let's just be straight up about that. And as you say, it's about not doing any physical campaigning, any person to person campaigning. Whereas, well, at least not in large groups.
Yeah, not in level 3 anyway.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. All right. So just a quick reminder to people that that I'm holding my Rongotai Roadshow tonight at 6 p.m. So that'll be
online.
That'll now be online. Yes, there's no reason why we can't do it online. And then at 7:30, Shai is holding her second North Shore Roadshow.
Which were both obviously planned as real life events, and we're just having to evolve and do it online instead.
Absolutely. And tomorrow night, we're going to have an Ask Me Anything with our candidate, Abe Gray, about the cannabis referendum. Wednesday night, we've got a session with, which again was a planned in real life event here in Newtown in Wellington, talking about the cycling infrastructure in the area, which has just been an absolute schmozzle. Everyone knows that it's needed to happen for quite some time, but for various reasons, the decision never gets made. And I think then Thursday night we have something else planned too, Shai, which has completely dropped my mind. Basically, we're going to have Lime streams every night this week, folks.
There's a lot on the calendar.
So keep tuning in. We are going to keep campaigning, but it'll be online. So make sure you tune in and check it out.
Cool. Have a good week, everyone. Have a good day, Geoff.
Thanks. I'm out filming our campaign video today, believe it or not. That's why I look so nice.
Have a good day. Take care, everyone.
Kia ora.